Hey there y'all, it's Megan. If you're returning to my channel, welcome back, and if you're new, welcome aboard. So today is going to be another story time kind of video. We're going to talk about tour groups at Disney World. And I'm sorry, all of my furry friends are up here with us right now. You want to say hi, Sashi? Here's me, Sasha. So if you hear playing around in the background, that's all these guys. So they're up here hanging out with me right now. But anyway, so I'm going to be talking about tour groups. There's Athena. I'm going to be talking about tour groups at Disney World, and if you have worked at Disney World or you know someone who's worked at Disney World, they have probably talked about the tour groups that come to Disney, and not always in the most positive light. So the purpose of this video is not to be like, tour groups are terrible and I hated them and they're the worst. Totally not the case at all. I admire people who can go to other countries and go in big groups and not panic, because I cannot go on vacation with just me and my husband and not panic. So good for y'all for staying together and being able to go and have a good vacation as a whole camp, or you know, whatever. So the first one I'm going to mention is not what you are picturing when you think of tour groups. When you think of the tour groups at Disney, you think of the huge groups of people all wearing matching t-shirts. There's a person in the front holding like a flag or an umbrella or something really big so that they can keep the whole group together. That's not what I'm talking about for this particular one. This one was a private tour group, and it was for a German, like, singer. He was apparently famous or popular somehow. I don't know who he was, I'm sorry. But he was there with a plaid, with a guest relations person. They had a private tour, which anyone can get. You don't have to be a celebrity, but celebrities do typically have private, like, VIP tours through the property. So this guy had a plaid with him, and they were coming in, and when you have private tours come to the Jungle Cruise, and I'm not sure how it is at most attractions, but it's probably similar, they come in through the exit and they get on. They don't have to wait through like the regular line. That's one of the perks of having like the VIP tour guide, is you just kind of get straight to the ride. And at Jungle you get your own boat. So this group was coming, and they came in through the exit, and we were loading all the guys on, and there was like 4 or 5 people and the guest relations cast members. So it was a pretty small group, and we were putting them on their boat. And you put them on at the unload area at the exit, and then that boat would just go straight through. It wouldn't load extra guests on. So we cleared it. We, you know, skipper, you're clear to go symbol, and they started moving. At that point, we saw someone from outside the queue, like outside the exit, who had been taking pictures that we didn't even know was part of the group. He comes, and he was a real tall guy. He comes and he's like sprinting, and it took him like 3 big steps, and he jumped into the moving boat. And that's not okay. You could actually get very hurt jumping onto the moving ride vehicles. Skippers can get in a lot of trouble if you jump onto a moving ride vehicle. But no one did get in trouble, because not only were all of the skippers standing there and seeing it, all of the coordinators for the Jungle Cruise that were there that day, because it was morning, they were all there, and there was a manager there. So we had multiple levels of administration standing right there seeing the whole thing, and no one could have stopped it. It couldn't have happened. So that was one tour group story that was just like, what's happening? Hang on. And the guy was totally fine. He has very long legs, and he just bounded right onto the boat like a little antelope, and was very graceful about it. We just were like, please don't ever do that again. So yeah, if you are with a tour group or otherwise, don't jump onto moving ride vehicles. One of the best things about tour groups is their enthusiasm. And some people don't like how enthusiastic tour groups are, because they're just really excited. And I think that that's kind of how you should be at Disney. I think that you should be excited, and just like everything should be super great, and you should really engage with everything. That's how I am anyway. So when you have tour groups, a lot of tour groups from other countries, especially if they don't speak English and they don't understand like a spieling attraction where you're just talking, they like to chant sometimes, and especially on boat rides, because I don't know why, but they do. And so that can be really fun, and sometimes skippers will just chant with them, and they just have a great time. And one of them was my friend Evan. He had one of the greatest interactions. Evan could get along with literally anyone. He is one of the sweetest people that has ever lived. He does a whole bunch of stuff with like charities, and he works with kids with different foundations and everything. He had one cruise one time that was unlike any other cruise that he had had, and people generally liked him. He was a pretty great skipper all around. But this one time we hear screaming, and we're like, whoa, what is happening? But a boat comes around from Trader Sam, and we just hear ah, over and over and over, and we're like, what is happening? And as he comes around the corner to unload, we realize that he has gotten this whole tour group, all of them, yelling at the same time. He's like leading them. It's like a square dance almost, where you've got the caller and then they respond, and it was bizarre. And I have a picture. Someone took a picture of it, and I'll put that here because it was one of the greatest things. You could see the emotion on everyone's faces. So they all just had a super great time, and it was like back and forth, and he got the whole boat going, and it was just a very enthusiastic ride, and I wish that I had been on that boat to experience the whole thing. So let's talk about the tour group that made fun of me. And like I mentioned at the beginning, I'm not here to bash any of these groups or anything. They weren't making fun of me personally, and I didn't take it personally or anything like that. So I'm just telling you a story just to tell you the story. It's not to complain or rant or whatever, but people like to know what experiences are when you're working at the Jungle Cruise, and this was one that I had. So I was on a boat and going fast, and sorry. I got a tour group loaded onto my boat, and at the Jungle Cruise, they say the maximum capacity of each boat is about 40 people. In reality, what you get is around like 28 to 30. If you have a whole bunch of kids, then you get closer to 40, but usually you've got somewhere in the 20-something-ish range of people. So when you have these big tour groups that are like 40, 50 people, you have to split those groups up, obviously. So it's not like when you come and you're like, oh, there's 2 of us, and you get on the boat with a whole bunch of people. With tour groups, it's basically this half is on this boat, this half is on this boat, and that's the entirety of the boat. So I got a tour group on my boat. They all came on, they all sat where they were supposed to, we were going good. I start the cruise, and the first thing that you have to do is, after you introduce yourself, you have to do the basic safety stuff. You know, to keep the hands, arms, feet, and legs inside the boat at all times. You have to do that, no matter what. Every cruise, you have to do that first, and you have to do it last when you are ending the cruise as well. You have to make sure that when there is the possibility for someone to be, you know, hands or feet or whatever touching, getting between the moving vehicle and the dock, we just want to make sure that everyone's safe. So those are the things that you absolutely have to say no matter what in your spiel. So I said that, and then I became aware that no one on my boat spoke English. Not a single one. They started chanting at me to speak in Spanish, and I was like, I can't do my spiel in Spanish. And I don't know if it's still the same way, but at the time what we had been told is if you have a boat full of people, because this was, it was kind of a common occurrence to have tour groups that did not understand English or didn't speak English, and they just kind of wanted to ride and take pictures and just enjoy like a boat ride, kind of like we enjoy Small World. You just look and you sit. Well, if that was the scenario, then we were told to do the safety information, and then if no one understood us, if we asked like, can anyone understand the jokes, like do you get it, then we would just hang up the mic and we would just sit and we would let them enjoy like a nice quiet ride. So that's what I did. I did my safety thing, and when they started chanting to speak in Spanish, I was like, I can't do that. I don't know all of my jokes in Spanish. So then I was like, okay. So I hung up the mic and I sat back on the little box up there at the front, and we just kind of cruised through the river, and I steered, and we drove through, and we had a nice little cruise. And they were all taking pictures, and they were, like I said, very enthusiastic group. So they were taking pictures, and they were all talking and having fun. And while I'm sitting there, I realized some of them were talking about me. And I was like, interesting. So I have mentioned before that I took Spanish for a lot of years, and I am sadly not proficient as I should be after that many years of Spanish. But I do understand understand and read Spanish okay. It's the speaking it that I struggled with mostly. So I could understand a good bit of what they were saying. I just can't like immediately like spit it back out usually that well. So I was listening and they were saying like, oh, she stopped talking because she's afraid of us. We made her uncomfortable. Look at her. And they were like kind of laughing like, ha ha ha, look, we upset her. She's scared, she's sad, just things like that. And they probably weren't meaning it in a malicious way. They were probably just being like, hey, look, like, we got her to be quiet, which I've had lots of English-speaking people who, trust me, would have really enjoyed me to be quiet on their cruise. People don't really like my accent, sorry. But that was the kind of stuff that they were saying, and I was like, oh, okay. So they're from a Spanish-speaking country, I get that, and I understand a little bit of what they're saying. So I was like, maybe I can do the exit spiel in Spanish. I was like, so then they would actually understand. So then I spent kind of the rest of the cruise like conjugating verbs and thinking of the appropriate way to give direction for what I needed to say in Spanish. So we got back to the dock. Because we were required to say it in English, I did again say, keep your hands, arms, feet, and legs inside the boat until we have arrived at a complete stop at the dock. I said all that, but then in Spanish, I said, this side, please exit out the front door. This side, out the back. Don't cross over anything in the middle and have a magical day. And I said all of that in Spanish. And I thought that was cool. I was like, look at me, I am making a connection. And they were like, they all stopped. Just the faces. And a guy at the front leaned forward and he was like, you understand Spanish? And I said, yeah, a little. And he was like, adios. And they bolted from the boat. So I don't know what else they might have said about me that I didn't hear or didn't understand, but I'm thinking that it probably wasn't just like, oh look, we got her to hush. They might have said some other stuff, which I don't know. My butt does not look good in those khaki pants, so they could have been making fun of that for all I know. But yeah, so that was an experience. But like I said, it wasn't a bad experience, it was just an experience. So if you are going to be working at Disney World, or you do work at Disney World, have you had any interesting interactions with a tour group, or any group for that matter? Let me know those down below. If you do have the ability to speak another language, make sure that you are doing those tests and getting the proficiencies like put onto your name tag, so that people who are looking for someone who speaks the language that they speak, they can find you more easily. And I would have loved to have been able to say that I could speak Spanish well enough to have that name tag so that I could communicate and help out that way, but it just wasn't something that I was comfortable enough with my language skills to do. So if that is something that you are comfortable doing, make sure that you are doing that, because there's a lot of times that it would be really helpful. So that's it for today. Just another little thing to think about when you are working at Disney World, or if you're visiting Disney World, things to look around for if you see tour groups. Know that they are very happy and very enthusiastic, and they will totally party with you if you want them to. You start a chant, start yelling, whatever, they're totally into it. So that is it. If you have any suggestions for future videos, if there's any questions you have about working at Disney or the Jungle Cruise in particular, let me know those too, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye y'all.